Hello, Bond fans! So, every time we get a new Bond film, we know we are going to have characters that fall into certain categories. So, obviously, there is going to be the girls, generally two or more. There's going to be the main villain. There is going to be allies of Bond. But, one category that gets sidelined sometimes is the villain's henchman category, and it's kind of a category all into its own. You have a different criteria as to what makes a great villain's henchman than what makes a great Bond villain, and I think it's a shame that, obviously Silver didn't have a prominent henchman in Skyfall, Schiffer didn't have a prominent henchman in Daniel Craig's Casino Royale, and I think that's quite a shame because I think that some of the James Bond villain's henchman characters are some of the most colourful and exciting characters in the whole James Bond fictional universe. And so today we're going to be looking at my personal top 10 favourite. And that's exactly what this list is. It's my own personal subjective opinion as to what are the top 10 best Bond henchmen. You will probably have a different opinion to mine, but that does not make yours right and mine wrong, or vice versa. It is purely opinion. If you want a discussion about it, if you disagree, leave a comment below and we can have a little tete-a-tete about it. But right now, let's get right into it, shall we? Let's take a look at my personal top 10 favourite Bond villain henchmen. But first we take a look at my dishonourable mention. If you asked anyone to state a positive aspect of this henchman, then I honestly don't know what they could possibly say. I have nothing remotely positive to say about this character. He's not cool, he's not strong, he doesn't have a good fight sequence, he's not funny, he's not quirky, he's just there. The thing that annoys me the most about Elvis is that I really get the sense that behind the scenes Mark Forster really thought this guy's shtick was hilarious. There are a few points in the film where, like the bit where they're at the opera and Elvis looks at the other guy and smiles, and I don't get it. Is that funny? Is it meant to be, oh, haha, he's a villain and yet he appreciates opera? Is it, oh, haha, he's stupid, yet he loves opera? What's the joke here? What's the point? Maybe that's just Mark Forster's very niche sense of humour, or maybe nobody knows what the hell this character is about. He doesn't even have a cool death. It's at least give him a cool death. Hans from You Only Live Twice was pretty crap, but at least he got eaten by piranhas. Oi, I hate this character. But that's enough negativity. Now it's on to the honourable mentions, and I'm sorry, but I just couldn't pick one between these three. I really do love these guys. They are all so cool in their own ways. Baron Samedi is such a strange character, but he has such a screen presence, and the fact that he appears to be alive at the end of the film is pretty neat. Nick Nack is a perfect partner to Scaramanga. He's a funny character most of the time, but he's also very devious and menacing. Govinda is a bit of an Oddjob clone, in a sense, that he's, big and strong, mostly silent, but I just love this bit on the plane at the end of Octopussy.
He'd kill us all. Go out and get him. Out there? Go. Yes, Excellency.
I really, really love that it's like, Oddjob was blindly loyal to whatever Goldfinger's objective was. Govinda isn't quite that fanatically devoted to his leader, though, but he still gets on top of the plane, nonetheless. Anyway, let's get this list on the go properly, shall we? Starting with my number 10. Number 10.
Oh.
Hello.
Fiona Volpe is definitely my favourite aspect of one of my least favourite Bond films. She's the first true Bond femme fatale, and she's a cool hench person. Much better than the other hench people in Thunderball. I'm looking at you, Vargas. If you've been watching these videos for a while, you know I'm not a Thunderball fan, but every time this woman appears on screen, it has my attention. She's a captivating character, and she's gorgeous. I really love that she's a femme fatale who isn't won over to Bond's side. She's too evil for Bond to bang the bad out of, unlike Pussy Galore and Tatiana Romanova. Fiona's death scene is probably my favourite scene in Thunderball. How the atmosphere and tension build and build is also interesting to hypothesise. Did Bond use her as a bullet shield deliberately? Or was it just a case of wrong dance move at the wrong time for her? Personally, I like to think Bond used her as a shield, but maybe 60s audiences wouldn't have taken too kindly to Bond directly killing a woman on screen. Indeed, that was something we wouldn't see until 1999. But yes, Fiona Volpe, the original Bond femme fatale, takes the number 10 spot on this list.
One of my friends sits this one out. She's just dead.
Number 9. I really hope I don't get too much stick for this, because I don't think that Renard is really that popular a character in the James Bond fandom, but I think he makes a really effective henchman. In my opinion, I don't think we've had a really great henchman since him. I like how Robert Carlyle plays the character, even if it is quite a dry performance. There's no humour to this character at all, nor with the lecturer either, really, but I guess that's appropriate. He's a man who's been sentenced to death, basically, and I guess maybe you would lose any sense of humour after being shot in the head. I really like the gimmick of the bullet in the head too. The whole making him stronger and more resistant to pain until the day he dies is really quite an original idea, I think. I know it's far-fetched, and I know it's silly and totally unbelievable, but hello, welcome to James Bond, folks. Or at least certain eras of Bond. I think he's effective, very memorable, and to be honest, he was the last true great James Bond henchman. After him, the well kind of dries up, which makes me appreciate him even more, perhaps. Number 8. A staple of every Bond fan's top henchman list, Oddjob is really the archetype Bond villain henchman. He's strong, he's silent, and he's blindly loyal to his master's evil causes. Throw into that mix an amazingly cool way of dispatching of people who get in his way in a larger-than-life death scene, and you have a classic Bond villain henchman. Oddjob is all of that wrapped up in one handy package, and hey, how many Bond villains got their own spin-off adverts for cough syrup?
Effective as codeine, but not narcotic.
Number 7. This is a villain, and to be honest, a character that's really grown on me as I've gotten older, much like the film he's in, to be honest. There's something very mature about From Russia With Love when compared to other films in the series. It is more of a serious spy thriller than a campy adventure, and when I first got into Bond, I was all for the campy adventure, and the serious thrillers just kinda didn't interest me. But as I say, I think From Russia With Love is something you appreciate more as you get older, and Red Grant is a part of that package. Robert Shaw plays this character superbly. It's probably the first time in the series we have a villain presented to us as the dark side of Bond, but that's not to say there isn't a certain amount of humour to this character. His impression of Nash really shows off this guy's incredible character acting abilities. If he hadn't settled for a life of crime, there's obviously something for him in the performing arts.
Nash. Captain Nash.
Bond travelling to Somerset.
My God.
This character left a huge impact on the series too, as it seems every decade we get a different blonde, muscular, assassin-type character who has a physical fisticuffs with Bond at some point, but in this case the original is indeed the best, which is why Red Grant is number 7 on my list. Number 6.
I have a clear shot at your head, Mr. Bond. Stand up, slowly. Drop your gun and kick it toward me, yeah?
Does anybody honestly not think this guy is just the best thing in Tomorrow Never Dies? He's only in the film for one scene and for a few minutes, but this guy is just hilarious, and yet incredibly menacing at the same time. Vincent Schiavelli is a really weird, quirky, bizarre actor, but he's a complete scene stealer in almost any film he's in, even if in reality he's the kind of person you would give a wide berth if you were walking past him in the street. Every time he pops up on screen in anything, my eyes are immediately drawn to him. He's so bizarre, and I don't know who was responsible for getting him for Tomorrow Never Dies, because he does stick out like a sore thumb from the rest of the film, but he's so fantastic, and it doesn't matter, really. If anything, it's a shame he couldn't have been in the film more, but then, who knows, maybe if he had his appearances doubled, he would have become a bit too much, a bit too strong and overpowering? I don't know, but you know what, I'm still thankful for this amazing little scene.
I'm just a professional doing a job.
Me too.
Number 5. This woman has a face like a smacked arse, don't you think? She just has the best face in the world for a crusty Bond villainess, and she's one of the best things in an already terrific Bond film. It's funny, I watched On Her Majesty's Secret Service very recently, and Bunt
isn't in the film half as much as I remembered her being, but that's, in a way, better, because that means that she leaves such a lasting impression, not least because this is the woman who killed Tracy Bond. Everyone, even Bond, usually goes on about how Blofeld killed Tracy, was responsible for her death, but he was just driving the car. It was Bunt with the gun. It was Bunt who put the bullet in her head. While being menacing, the character has a few really funny moments, like when the girls talk about her having ears of an elephant, when she jumps out of bed at Bond, and the scream she lets out when her car blows up.
I think it's a real shame we never got to see more of this particular character, but it probably comes down to two things. One being that George Lazenby left the series, and the producers seemed keen to erase almost any trace of him even being in this series, and two, the actress sadly died shortly after filming was completed.
It's a real shame she never got to capitalise on her new exposure, but she made a lasting impression in On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is why she's number 5 on this list.